Anyway, I'll say welcome everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. And before we start, I'll have the land acknowledgement is that we acknowledge that we are in a land surrounded by water, originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, the Anishinaabe, the Lenape allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around our Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, the Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples, and we are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving towards respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis nations. Before we move on to, I just want to report out that we did have a closed meeting, was held earlier this evening at 3:30 in accordance with section 239(2)(b) and G of the Municipal Act 2001. At the meeting, the council provided direction to administration concerning an identifiable individual, as well as receive an update on a special project. As well, recognition for council services that the procedural rules on the order of business of the special council meeting be suspended to allow for the following agenda items: recognition of council services, report our DS 20-2243 exemption from draft plan of condo approval, council support, a Harbor Club condo at 14400 Tecumseh Road. Any motion on the November 8th regular council meeting be considered, and the confirmatory bylaw to be read and approved. So for motion. Deputy Mayor Buchetti, Councillor Houston, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. All right. So we've got two delegations today. And first, call upon Michelle Bonici, our Director of People and Culture, and the People Strategy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. I am really pleased to be presenting the Town of Tecumseh's People Strategy Plan for your review and consideration today. This is a high-level view of our strategic vision, and before diving into some of the slides, I'll just set the scene by highlighting a few pieces. So this document that you see in front of you that we'll be going through is a high-level view of our strategic vision with respect to our human resources and our work culture. In addition to this document, as you can imagine, there are several other planning and supporting materials identifying priorities, capacity assessments, and action plans. What you see in this document today is really a culmination of many months of work and informal and formal consultation. And one of the great things about this strategy was developed concurrently with the implementation of some of the priorities that were established throughout the year. So this perspective that I used was significant in that it allowed us to design and create the strategy through the observations and consultations made throughout the year. This way, ensuring its relevance and identifying real gaps and real priorities as we move through the months. So a little over a year ago, this organization made a decision, an important one in my view, to focus on HR, or what we call people and culture. And this focus was meant to be a foundational pillar to the success of the organization. So I was hired to transform human resources as it was and assist the building and strategy and culture that celebrates our most important asset, which is our people. So this strategic plan focuses on that transformation. And obviously, this isn't something that I or the People and Culture Department will be implementing alone. This is a strategy and an implementation plan that is owned by all of us, council, senior management team, and each and every one of our employees. And so I'd like to begin our people strategy journey by first discussing our guiding principles, as you can see in our first slide. So there's 3 sets of guiding principles in this strategy. The first being the development of a people strategy that sustains, collaborates, engages, and develops the culture of the organization. The second, by creating a work community where people thrive and performance excels. And the third is to foster an environment of leadership, inclusion, diversity, and ethical behavior. Next slide, please, Christina. So when I speak about consultation, and as I mentioned previously, this includes embedding our council's strategic priorities into this strategic plan. And these strategic priorities would feed into our people strategy. So as you can see, there's 4 of the strategic priorities: smart growth, continuous improvement, community health and wellness, leadership and good governance, that feed into 4 of the primary key objectives. And then underlying all of that is the foundational objective of delivering excellence in HR and people and culture core services. Next slide, please, Christina. So part of the consultation process over this past year also included ensuring that the recommendations made in our HR service review back in 2020, which was approved by council, were also incorporated, but additionally so validated. And therefore, when building the strategy, these factors were all taken into consideration as well. So the consultants at the time made recommendations along the lines of 5 themes, and you'll see them there: strategic priorities, structure and staffing, services modernization, process updates, and technology. Next slide, please. So why have a people strategy in place? Why do we need one? Well, our people strategy guides our journey of growth and development and outlines how we leverage the talents of our people to realize our strategic ambitions. So the continued ability to have staff lead, create, and innovate, and the town's ability to attract, develop, and retain talent is critical. And the future brings many significant challenges ahead. So if we want to remain a leader in this dynamic environment, it won't be enough to just adapt to changes as they arise. We have to foresee what's coming and shape our direction in anticipation of that. So this people strategy will improve our ability to strategically attract, develop, and retain the best staff and create an environment in which they flourish and succeed. Next slide, please. So the forces that drive this people strategy are really environmentally the things that contribute to it are essentially skills shortages in the labor market, increased competition for talent, eligibility for retirement. We're all in this across a number of organizations, not in just our industry. And so we see a lot of skills shortages. The generational gap, certainly increasing diversity and inclusivity in the workforce is vital, and technology. So all these factors contribute to driving our people strategy. And as you see on this slide, people strategy, there's 5 key objectives as I highlighted previously. These are what we call the pillars, and they're all linked in some way, but each carry specific action items along with them. And I'll go through those as we move through our slides moving forward. So next slide. The first of those key objectives is that underlying foundational objective that I spoke about previously. So it's really about the practice of human resources, ensuring that people and culture has the appropriate resources, skills, structure, and service delivery is critical to the timely and effective delivery of HR strategic initiatives and services. The shift from human resources to people and culture is a purposeful one because it tells a story and underlines the emphasis on the transformation that is happening in the organization. So when we talk about people and culture, there are core services that drive what the people and culture team actually do. And essentially the people and culture team are there to support the entire organization. But there's 3 fundamental divisions of service. First being strategic, So lots of things like talent acquisition and retention, labor and employee relations, performance management, learning and development, workforce planning. Then we have the operations and compliance division, which is around advice and support, looking at business partner solutions, health and safety, compensation, compliance, and policies and analytics. And then we have our talent management side of that, of the operation, which is organizational development, looking at engagement, workforce planning, training and development, leadership and culture, change management, and looking at the return on investment for our people value creation. So some of the actions associated with this particular key objective include conducting a comprehensive evaluation of all key HR services and establishing objectives and implementation strategies, looking at evaluating and assessing operational capacity. So people and culture capacity analysis is required, and this is something that's actually been done and will be presented in budget deliberations coming in the next few weeks. Establishing and reporting metrics to influence and inform strategic decision-making and workforce planning. Establishing service level standards, modernizing our HR processes, updating our policies, moving the benefits and pension administration to the human resource, people and culture function, and exploring options to reduce the reliance on manual intervention and the duplication of work. Our next key objective is our talent management objective. And this is where we essentially focus on requiring the very best talent to be sourced, engaged, developed, and retained. This is what we talk about when we say placing the right talent in the right roles at the right time. And this is the key to our success in an organization, to any organization. So some of the actions associated with this key objective is building our leadership excellence and developing succession planning for some of our leadership roles. In addition, a newly designed performance management process, which we've just concluded actually building, creating learning opportunities that will enhance workforce skill sets. And that's for a variation of different groups of employees. So new employees, current employees, supervisors, managers, and leaders. Assessing our current professional development approach across the organization, creating high potential identification as well. And we want to foster a unified, engaged, and efficient platform for employees and managers throughout their life cycle. So this includes making sure we have robust onboarding, hiring, performance management, compensation management, learning management, and succession planning functionality. We also want to assess the town's recognition program and develop a total reward strategy. So certainly, even in just what I've spoken of in this key objective, it's a pretty tall order, but imperative for us to ensure we're supporting, building, and enhancing our teams. So our next key objective is that of enabling the development of a high performance and value-based culture. So we want to employ engagement processes, and these are what protect and promote the culture and values of the organization. The actions for this particular key objective, next slide, please, would include establishing organizational core values and embodying them. So making sure that we're actually walking the talk around the values, initiating and aligning a reward and incentive structure, developing and delivering target development for leaders that focus on driving performance through teams, coaching, and leadership, incorporating modeling and coaching specific behaviors, and establishing goals to keep career development prevalent and setting clear performance expectations. We'll also want to look at developing talent review processes that explicitly assesses employees on being collaborative leaders. And we want to create a solution-oriented culture. The next objective really is about taking care of our people. This is where employees need to be empowered, engaged, and feel valued and be heard. So when we talk about action items out of this particular key objective, we're talking about developing and implementing a reward and recognition strategy. We're developing and implementing tools and assessments to gain feedback from employees at all levels in the organization. So here's where we're talking about engagement survey tools, listening to what people have to say. We're establishing and reinforcing guiding principles on ethical culture, and we're ensuring organizational justice by ensuring that standards of conduct are applied consistently throughout the organization, and ensuring also that we have confidence in reporting and in investigative processes. We also are looking at initiatives to ensure that we embed diversity in all that we do by establishing a diversity and inclusion policy, but more so than that, it's more about a policy and setting clear implementation paths and accountabilities for improvement across the organization. We also want to focus on wellness and well-being, and have done some of those initiatives throughout 2022, and we continue to press on within 2023 to ensure that we have a healthy workplace culture. We want to develop and deliver corporate education platforms that focus on a number of things, but include, the prevention of harassment and discrimination, and the promotion of ethical conduct and respect in the workplace. And we also want to ensure that investigations are conducted thoroughly and fairly and with the highest level of integrity. So bringing it all full circle, this last objective really correlates with all of the objectives that we previously discussed and further emphasizes the importance of our talent acquisition and retention strategy. So it comes full circle. And that is that the primary objective for this particular piece is to hire and retain the best talent. We want to build talent pipelines, and we also want to build strong employer branding for the town of Tecumseh. So how do we do this? Well, there's a number of things, and I'll highlight a couple, but establishing innovative, responsive, fair, and consistent recruitment and selection services. We want to develop strategic partnerships with recruitment firms, with educational institutions, and with government bodies. We want to expand the use of technology, increase training for hiring managers, and measure and monitor process completion and quality of service. We want key metrics established around time to fill and diversity and quality of hire. We're looking at promotion of the corporation as an employer of choice through ongoing marketing and education strategies, and looking at things like total compensation review that includes benefits and salary. Creating a strategic process designed to welcome and acclimate new employees into the corporation's culture, and building that talent acquisition strategy that enhances external and internal candidate experience and integrate social recruiting as well. So in order to ensure we realize all of this, and yes, it is pretty substantive, we have formulated our commitments around this. And this is commitments not just from the perspective of people and culture, but commitments that we all take on as a senior management team. And that's embracing our organizational culture, developing our human capacity, excelling at customer service delivery, expanding our social relationships, and taking time to plan for the future, making informed decisions. And this enables our our success and our ability to successfully implement the strategy. So in conclusion, over the next 3 years and beyond, the town is committed to strengthening our greatest asset, and that's our people. A deliberate focus on these 5 critical imperatives will enable the continued commitment and loyalty of our people, but also ensures our success as a municipality. But most of all, it will ensure we can competently and successfully provide exceptional levels of service to our community and our residents. So in looking at the accompanying report to this presentation, and if Christina can just pop that up. The accompanying report does highlight the primary aspects of the presentation that I just spoke to. And in addition, it also highlights some of the priorities in 2023 and also reflects on some of the key priorities implemented in 2022. And some of those key priorities include implementing new recruitment and retention strategies, We've had a significant amount of recruitment this year, and so that's been important in order for us to be able to ensure that we're improving our candidate experiences by initiating new onboarding experiences for new hires. We reviewed, designed, and implemented the new non-union performance management system as well. We developed consistent approaches to some legal employment matters, reworking new employment contracts and ensuring labor management matters are appropriately documented, ensuring compliance with collective agreement language, and we successfully negotiated a new agreement with our fire association as well. Ensuring complaint and investigation processes are transparent and fair, and that both the complainant and respondent are treated with dignity and respect through the processes. We reviewed benefit and employee assistant programs this year so that we are prepared to move forward in the upcoming year in order to be able to drive some of those initiatives. We also worked significantly with the health and safety protocols, several of which pertain to COVID-19. And there were a lot of requirements that required implementing. We undertook some mental health and well-being initiatives as well as respectful workplace initiatives, and we continue to want to make that a priority in the upcoming year, and embarked on HR operational capacity assessments and process reviews as well, looking at the analysis of HRIS requirements so that we can actually move into potentially having an HRI system in place for 2023. And all of this concurrently with the above developed the people strategy for council's consideration. So through the people strategy and in conclusion, the town is embarking on, yes, a very ambitious journey to sustain a workplace community where people thrive and performance excels. And the strategy provides the foundation for our people to succeed, our culture to transform, and our people and culture function to evolve. Thank you for the opportunity to present this today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle, for an in-depth report. Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Mayor. Thank you very much, Michelle, for very intensive in terms of the report. It's first of one I've seen in a municipality over the years. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I think it's important. I know this morning with Councillor Jobin, I had a meeting with the authority, and they're having a hard time with retention. And, it's so easy to have the qualifications, but when people go, you can't stop. So here, having this in place as a policy or as a document, not only does it show your commitment to the organization, but to the employees and those that do want to come. So I'm very happy to support this evening.
Thank you.
Move by Deputy Mayor and supported by Councillor Tonio. Any further questions, comments? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship, and to Michelle. It's a very extensive document, and I'm a firm believer, as you have said, the strength in the organization, it really comes from the people, and we can't do what we do, here at the council table without, the help of administration, and we're a team, right? So I'm really excited to see how depth and in-depth the plan is in supporting our team members. So, in full support, and excited to see the way that it develops over the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. And I've always felt very strong that, you need your team, I call it our team, council, certainly administration, respect, accountability, and collaboration. I think are foundational piece, that I think are critical in success. And we certainly have done that, but now to have kind of a guide, I think it is very important. one of the key pieces that I've really enjoyed in your report is, and I think maybe an area that we need to do a bit better, and that's on diversity. And because obviously, I think it's critical for us to be able to represent our community, from the workforce and even for that matter for our council. I think those are very, very important pieces. And we live in a region that is one of the most diverse in all of Canada. We're bouncing between the 5th to the 3rd most diverse community. For many, we have roughly about 116 ethnic groups living in our community that speak 80 different languages. So that's pretty impressive for a community. It's about 400,000 people. There is a lot of opportunities for organizations to come in and work with us. And I'm going to be biased. One that I know somebody very close that retired from there is the Multicultural Council of Windsor and Essex County, who have been in existence here for about 50 years. And, some opportunities to come in and have that conversation about, diversity. And I think those are critical. But I'd be remiss too, not to say that over the years, we've been very fortunate to have, really hardworking councils that collaborate well together and in a strong workforce within the community. And it's something that I've always been, as the mayor, over the course of the years, been very proud of the efforts of our community. And I hear a lot of good things from other folks. We're small, but I think our motto is always, we don't want to be the biggest, but we want to be the best that we can be. And this report really sets the benchmark. I like the impact. And when you think of human resources, when you say human resources, well, it's oh yeah, that's the department that hired fire and so forth. But I don't know who came up with the people and culture. But I think it really it makes more sense, because it's about the people and the culture that we build as a community. And so I think the report fits really well and a great document. So it took a lot of work and effort to do that, and collaboration with all your team behind you. And so thank you for your leadership on delivering, I think, a very, very important piece that should give the confidence to everyone that works for us, and also the folks that seek our service, our service delivery. And that's the other big piece. And most of us around the horseshoe have really been, I think, what we call sticklers on customer service. And as I tell the folks out there, they're the employers. I work for them, and same as council. They're the ones that put us in these positions. And so we have to deliver on customer service. And I think this is a great document.
Thank you.
All right, on the question, duly moved and supported. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you again, Michelle. Okay, move on to our next report, Public Works, Environmental Services, 2022 Asset Management Plan and amendment to the Strategic Asset Management Policy, policy number 95. I think we need to change the name tags. You don't look like Zora. There we go.
Hello, Mayor and members of council. I'd like to thank you guys for spending the time to review the asset management plan and consider the report as well. Myself and Zora will be presenting the second update of the Town of Tecumseh Asset Management Plan, commonly referred to as version 3 or V3 in the upcoming slides. So brief history, the asset management plan was first adopted in 2013, and it was essentially a tool to help municipalities understand current and future infrastructure investment requirements. The first update to AMP or AMP V2 was adopted in 2018. The second update, or version 3, started in 2020. The purpose of that update was to basically meet some requirements with OREG 588-17. And this presentation is going to briefly talk on some of those points. Next slide, please. So as previously discussed, the required municipalities to adopt plans by the end of 2013 in order to be eligible for provincial grant funding. Plans were to include infrastructure assets and were required to be updated every 5 years. We previously had a life cycle program in place, which aided the development of our first asset management plan adopted in 2013. As previously mentioned, our first AMP update, version 2, was completed and adopted in May of 2018. So in 2020, we initiated a general review of the required updates under the OREG. Originally, these requirements included the update to be completed in 2021, but were delayed by a full year in March of 2021. A review of the requirements was conducted and a working plan was established to update the respective sections of the asset management plan, which are included in version 3. Next slide, please. So the format of these AMP update generally follows the same format as version 2, including the executive summary, introduction, state of local infrastructure, levels of service, asset management strategy, financial strategy as well. Our first update extended to 20 years with the provincial requirement being a minimum of 10 years. In the previous presentation in 2018, we had stated that we would be moving to a 10-year time period. One benefit of a longer period allows for the inclusion of maintenance and replacement estimates for long-lived assets. Expenditure projections, on the other hand, are very more challenging, especially in a field hard hit by inflation in a growing municipality. As discussed with regular updates of many of the studies and the annual update of the 5-year capital plans, the AMP is suited for frequent regular updates. Shorter timeframes lead to much more accurate, less distorted information, as previously discussed and approved in the capital priorities meeting. Next slide, please. So AMP 3 focus on the state of infrastructure, the levels of service, and life cycle activities. Those were the main components of this update. The state of local infrastructure was updated with new plans and is easily quantifiable. We've been able to gauge accurate information through many different studies and inspections. Roads, for example, is quantified based on PCI, or pavement condition index, which has been moved to electronic analysis method, which easily catches condition and timing very well. Levels of service include are set by the municipality and include requirements within the OREG. In this update, we included OREG customer and technical performance measures and statements which are beyond the current criteria established by the town. Some of this data is easily quantifiable or explained, while others require further investigation to determine if targets are met. Some of these targets are not currently set, but will be set in prior updates. The third update is life cycle activities, which serve as a guide for options available for a particular asset to maintain current levels of service. This includes not only maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, but disposal as well, which is activity that should be included, as the abandonment of assets are not always feasible in every scenario. These costs, although hard to quantify on an individual basis, should be taken into consideration in future updates. So included in this update were studies during the 2018 and 2022 period. There's been numerous studies completed. Data from these studies have been compiled into the state of local infrastructure to update respective conditions, new assets, and asset strategies. Need studies were used to incorporate life cycle activities required within the next 10 years where available. We have a handful of studies nearing completion as well, which will be useful in upcoming updates. Some of these include the water and wastewater rate study, sanitary recalibration study, and the shoreline management plan. So as previously discussed, this AMP update focused on addressing OREG requirements, incorporating recent studies and what was approved through the capital priorities meeting, and revising inventories inclusive of updating asset condition, adding new assets, removing old assets, and updating the costs associated with these core assets.
The assets covered in version 3 include the road network, bridges, culverts less than 3 meters, the storm sewer collection system, the water distribution system, and the sanitary collection system. The current total replacement cost of all these assets is $853 million. That works out to a town investment of $95,000 per household. With these next few slides, I will get into the asset management plan financing section. But before I get into the details, I would like to let you know that this is strictly financial modeling. It's a long-term financial plan with many assumptions as detailed in our asset management plan document. There are no specific financial recommendations that we are asking council to approve. Increases to our life cycle and nil allocations are done through the budget process. Capital works are approved by council through council reports, so there's no change to our practice. So now let's get into some of the details of our model. Total revenues over the 10-year study period are $178 million. This includes life cycle contributions, water and wastewater life cycle contributions, known and expected grant funding, development charge revenue, and Part 12 recoveries, which is consistent with the Public Works 2023 to 2031 Capital Works Plan presented to council in the spring. This is different than we've done in the past, but we felt it was important to include these two particular revenues in version 3, since the planned capital works are very growth oriented. Total expenditures over the 10-year period surpass revenues totaling $194 million. Capital works are in line with the 2023 to 2031 Capital Works Plan, with condition assessments and studies used to prioritize asset rehabilitation and reconstruction as applicable. And for expenditures, an annual inflationary factor of 2% was used. The end result is that we're forecasting a 16 million net expenditure by the end of the study period. Next slide. The results, oh, sorry, can you go back one, Christina? Thank you. The results of our asset management plan version 3 financial modeling reflects annual funding deficits for both the general tax supported assets and the rate supported assets. The average annual requirement includes life cycle expenditures for the tax supported categories of roadways, bridges and culverts, and all capital expenditures for storm, since there's no allocation in the new infrastructure levy for storm. All capital expenditures for the rate supported categories of water and wastewater. And as per the rate study model, user rate allocations must be sufficient to ensure full cost recovery of the water and wastewater systems, which is why we include everything for these two categories. General tax and rate funding includes average annual budget allocations to specific asset categories from the town's life cycle program, held static throughout the 10-year plan timeframe at 2022 approved budget levels. User rate allocations and property owner recoveries for water and wastewater asset categories, DMAF and OSIP funding for stormwater. In total, the town's asset management plan annual funding requirement is approximately 83% achieved, which is really quite good. This is reflective of the town's well-established life cycle program. The benefit of calculating the annual requirement of existing assets plus asset additions over the course of the study period is that it allows us to calculate what kind of life cycle, new infrastructure levy, and rate increases might be required in the future. Now, this slide is a good visual of the total reserve balances over the 10-year period, which includes roads, bridges, storm, water, and wastewater reserves and reserve funds. The 2021 year-end reserve balance is 30 million. So this is our January 1st, 2022 starting point. And by the end of the planning period, the total estimated reserves are $14 million. This is where that $16 million net expenditure that I discussed earlier comes into play. You can see it in the decrease in reserves. So keep in mind, though, that this is only a model. Reserve balances will vary based on actual results. For example, the forecast model assumes a total of $24 million of development charge revenue and $12.7 million in Part 12 recoveries. So if these recoveries are delayed by only 2 years, the ending total would be in a deficit position. The asset management plan exercise underscores the importance of the town's commitment to the life cycle program, which is designed to fund the replacement of existing assets, the new infrastructure levy, which is used to fund new assets. And it further underscores the importance of determining the appropriate user rate reserve allocations when updating the water and wastewater rate study. As mentioned earlier, the asset management plan will be used to determine required enhancements to life cycle allocations come budget time. And finally, can't underscore enough, senior government support is an essential component of asset management. Now, during a previous update process, the province developed and released OREG 58817. This legislation places increasing demands upon municipalities and will require research, education, collaboration, and staff time. That being said, though, there is no question as to the benefits of having an asset management plan and going through the exercise in developing it. As mentioned earlier, the province introduced the Building Together guideline on asset management plans, and municipalities were told that we had to have a plan to receive grant funding. So today, most municipalities, I would think all of them should have an asset management plan. But what we've seen is that many municipalities, they farmed out the work and had a check the box philosophy. So there were so many differences between completeness, detail, methodology, and assumptions used to develop the current plans. So as a result, the province announced authority for regulation of asset management plans within the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act 2015. Ontario Regulation 588, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure, was passed in late 2017. The goal here with this legislation was to have municipalities produce asset management plans that were more consistent and robust. The first requirement of this new regulation was an asset management plan policy. This was to be developed and adopted by July 1st, 2019. As you can see from the slide, the policy requires a fair amount of detail. Council adopted the town's first asset management policy, Policy 95, on June 25th, 2019. With this asset management plan update, administration has undertaken a thorough review of the policy and is recommending certain additions as outlined in tonight's council report to ensure regulatory compliance.
Moving forward, AMP requirements are being completed in a phased approach with full compliance by July 1st, 2025. This slide lists 3 additional phases or 2 additional phases, sorry.
Cameron, just hang on a second, just because I'll probably lose my thought here. Go back to, when you go back to the various acts that have been brought forward, maybe it's premature and right now, but when you looked at over the next 10 years, you made mention about the various dollars, that fund, our reserves and certainly life cycling and so forth. I guess my question, and maybe you haven't got the answer yet, but Bill 23 was just announced, and a lot of development charges now are going to be waived by the province by different categories of affordable housing and so forth being built. I'm curious. There's no doubt this is going to have an impact, especially for us on our revenues that we collect. And then the offset of property taxes to supplement our requirements and reserves for our life cycling, our buckets of various reserves that are supplemented by development charges. So that what kind of impact, because will that skewer your, obviously your plan for the next 10 years?
Well, with this model, we haven't taken that into account. We've followed the same format that was presented to council in the spring. We've made the same assumptions like with DC revenues and the Part 12 charges. But I think, definitely in the future, it will have an impact. The waiver of certain development charges, even just the deferrals that I had mentioned a few months ago when I brought that policy forward, that could have an impact. And like what I found when I was doing the modeling, just even delaying the collection of the development charges and the Part 12 charges really has a significant impact. 2 years and the reserves are in a deficit position. So, that's something that we will have to consider with our next update.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I knew you guys would have the kind of the game plan, but I think for the political side, for us, I think we need that information because right now you're in discussion stages on Bill 23 as an example, but I really want to emphasize the impact that our municipality is going to have because you identified the deficit areas. Okay, I know it's just a modeling and so forth, but the impacts can be, I know it's going to be there. There's no doubt. But I certainly want the provincial government to understand what are going to be the the offset to that, where the revenue is going to shrink for us. And as you know, the only place that we can make up the difference is raising taxes and property taxes. Is there going to be other opportunities where I'm hoping, and that's going to be a discussion for later, is where the government's going to have to come to the table with more grants or more opportunities to help fund the lost revenue that municipalities are going to have. I understand the whole crisis of the housing piece and so forth, but it's almost like they're trying to solve a problem by creating another problem. Because if municipalities have to find even more dollars to help pay for growth, whether it's for affordable housing and so forth, what I think are important pieces, somebody's got to, the accountability. This is the whole piece that I think I'm not 100% convinced that the province understands what the impact is going to be for us in the lost revenue and the other, they hate to raise taxes, but on themselves, but that's going to be an impact for us. So I'm looking forward to, to seeing that. But I think we're going to need that information sooner than later. So I don't want to put additional pressures on corporate services, but I think that's going to be important for us around this horseshoe when we're at Roma and AMO and others, and say, look, and work with our association, AMO, and also with MFOA, your counterparts. I think jointly we're going to have that conversation with the government, say there's an impact here financially to municipalities. Okay.
Back to the three-staged approach. The next update of this asset management plan will be July 1st, 2024. And it is essentially inclusive of everything in this current update, but for all assets, not just core assets. So roads, storm, sanitary, water. So a supplementary update will be required in the following year in 2025 with additional details laid out in the OREG. That will be part of our review. Following 2025, we'll be required to update the plan every 5 years with annual updates to council, including the endorsement by executive lead of municipality. So alluded to in the last slide, the next steps for us will be to review the requirements of the OREG and leverage the resources made available to municipalities to complete updates for all other assets. In 2025, we will incorporate any new studies and finalize the asset management plan with respect to the OREG requirements for 2025. In closing, I would just like to thank everybody who spent a considerable amount of time on this update. Public Works staff, Phil, Kirby, Brad, especially Cheryl, that has helped kind of consolidate and format this plan. Financial services, Tom and Zora, who spent countless hours updating the financials, as well as technology and client services, Jamie, for giving us the GIS exports for all our assets. We're fortunate enough to have a very good GIS system, which greatly helps update these plans. And now we'll just like to remind council that the complete document will be accessible on our website, along with all the studies referenced in the asset management plan document. If there's any questions, we can field those now.
not so much question, but more of a comment. I want to, two things. One, I want to commend the previous councils going back to 2003, when even the provincial government, federal government, they couldn't spell asset management. And our community, and I know, Joe, you were here, at the time when we initiated the life cycling and asset management plan. You talk about the GIS, you talk about financial analysts. That was one reason why this young lady was hired here, as you know. I think, we were very progressive in thinking and dealing with that. And it sure shows in our finances as we move forward. You can imagine municipalities that are just in the beginning stages, and all of these requirements now that have been put upon us by the provincial government. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's good business to know your assets, how old they are, when they need to replace. And to me, it's like running your household at home. You've got your checking account, and then you've got your savings account, and it's important to have buckets of money in both of them in order for us to do that. But I want to thank certainly corporate services. Tom, you've been here quite a bit as well, and with Luke and I remember council of the day said, we need to have this, and you guys laid it out. And so it's very appreciative on our side. We knew the merits of it early on. And so now it's just a matter of, as the provincial government adds more issues, that we have to deal with, is just to find out, what the impacts of that going to moving forward. I know it's going to be a lot lighter for us versus other communities. So thank you for this work. I think it's a great step for us. And in the same token, it prepares us moving into the 2023 budget, as well. So thank you for this work. Go ahead, Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I will echo those comments. We're in a position today because of councils before, and I can't, thank them enough for the foresight, all of administration at the time as well. The one question I had is, we've made reference in this, in looking at the 10-year expenditures, we are increasing those annually by 2% just to capture some inflation. But do we also increase our life cycle funding every year to account for some of that inflation as well?
So for the financial modeling, I did not increase the life cycle. I did not want to just take it upon myself to assume that a budget we were going to be increasing life cycle, because I know with every year there's different budgetary pressures. So what I did was I just took the existing contributions from 2022 and I kept those static over the 10-year plan.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's one piece what we all need to be mindful of is, if we're modeling that the expenditures are increasing, we need to also model that the life cycle will eventually have to catch up, or we'll be in a larger, deficit position. But I fully realize, all of the pressures that we see around here, budget to budget, but I just wanted to ask that question. So thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I too appreciate the report, and just in completing, going door to door, not a lot, it came up often, just this road, that road, this, that, not that. And the asset management plan was something I would discuss, and life cycle, just saying we're aware of our inventory and, and compare it to operating a home. You put your roof on, you buy the 15, 20-year shingles, 5 years, you're going to start saving because they're only going to last 10 years. I would give those analogies. So this is very important in how we operate as a business successfully. So I do appreciate the report as well.
And it will be, I think, Cameron, you mentioned that it'll be on our website as well. So I think this is, it's a great tool for folks to to look at that, decisions that we make. It's not just for the sake of raising taxes like some folks think, but it's basically managing, their assets, and it really is their assets. And it's a great tool for them to, and help us educate ourselves and educate, our citizens, how important. So to your point, Councilor Jobin, I think as much information as we can give them, it really prepares us, at the end when we defend and our budget, on a yearly basis.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just trying to signal to Christina to put the report recommendation up on the screen, please.
Yes.
If we could comment on
Yep,
that.
go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship to council. So very important work being done here, and do credit all of the staff. I know how much of an extra hours and extra time and thought and consideration went into this. I'm very proud of the team. We are running a little on the late side with respect to our due date on this, and so there is some urgency in getting this to this particular council meeting and seeking your adoption of the plan, as some of our grant funding for next year is contingent on this plan being submitted to the province and then posted also on our website. So there before you on the screen are the report recommendations this evening, that the report be received, of course. However, the more important one is that the asset management plan and policy be adopted. Thank you.
All right, with that, moved by Deputy Mayor McKetty, supported by Councilor Houston. Any further questions? All in favor?
Phil wanted to comment.
No, you can't. No money left.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't get this little thank you in. During the presentation, you did see an acknowledgement page of everybody that contributed. But I definitely wanted to give a big thank you to Cameron and Zora for all the time that they put in, with all the days, evenings, and weekends that they put in. We wouldn't be here before council this evening. So I just wanted to extend a big thank you on behalf of administration to them.
Actually, it hasn't been lost by us. We knew that these were the ones that did the heavy lifting. No, but we certainly appreciate that. And we're very fortunate that, again, we got great people doing great work for us. All right, so I did call the question, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, it was all done. Okay. Excuse me. Hmm?
Is it supported motion? It is supported. Okay, yeah. I think you called it. Oh, sorry, you called it question.
Yeah, sorry. The wrong hole. Mm-mm.
Right.
Mm. Excuse me. That's done, that's done. Oh, yes, I think Mr. Hillman or Mr. Jeffrey's gonna, I believe this is just kind of a cleanup. Oh, there he is. Didn't recognize you, you're so far back. Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with that nice introduction, I'll be quite brief. This is a technical matter that relates to perhaps if we go to attachment 1, just as a point of reference for anyone watching from home. This is in relationship to a condominium that is really nearing completion and almost ready for occupancy on the north side of Tecumseh Road, just east of Brighton Road. And it's known as Harbor Club Condominium. And that's a 64 unit apartment, 5 stories. In July, actually in 2018, there was a planning process that council supported through official plan and zoning amendments that allowed for the development, and ultimately council signed an agreement in 2019 for site plan approval that detailed how the site would develop. Conditions were attached through the plan of condominium process that had a public component as well. And that resulted in council asking the Approval Authority, which is the County of Essex, to attach 3 conditions to the plan of condominium approval. One is enter into a site plan control agreement. The other is that a stormwater management study be completed and that the agreement specifically specify that it will be constructed and that a confirmation that the development would conform to the zoning bylaw. Ultimately, a draft plan approval was granted by the County of Essex. Unfortunately, that has a 3-year lifespan, not unlike draft plan subdivision or consent applications. Approvals are given with conditions and there are timelines established in the Planning Act. And unwittingly, the August date of 2022 came and went, and it was not caught by the approval authority or the applicant. They are now in a position to close on various sales for that building, and it came to light. So fortunately, the Condominium Act does provide for a rather than going through the entire process of draft plan approval, which would be a public meeting, conditions, and unnecessary steps to be taken, it does provide for what's called an exemption process. And that has been requested from the county. The county is in support of that process. And what that really means is they will ensure with all the agencies that have some consideration here that they're comfortable that all the matters have been addressed. One is the town. We've reviewed this matter in the face of an executed and registered site plan agreement. And with the reality that the development is fundamentally almost complete. And in fact, our building staff are in doing occupancy reviews at this time for certain units in there. Quite comfortable that this could proceed right to final approval. And it's quite accommodating for the developer. In summary, Mr. Mayor, we have no concerns and would recommend that that process unfold. And from a financial implications perspective, this does allow not only the sales to complete, but upon registration of the plan of subdivision, MPAC will, combined with the issuance of occupancy permits, they'll reassess the units. And of course, then the town would be in a position to collect taxes on those units effective the occupancy date. So if we go back to the front of the report, if we could, please, there's a 3-point recommendation that council support the plan of condominium filed as 37D 19001 with the County of Essex, that it be supported, that the request for exemption under the Condominium Act, Section 9 be supported, and that the County of Essex be advised council supports the exemption and no further conditions are sought from the town. And would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions or comments? Then on the recommendation?
Thank you, Worship, through you to Brian. Whenever exemption, comes through, my ears always peak up and always want to learn more, but it was a very good written report and it was clear and concise to me. So it makes sense and I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you. Duly moved by Councilor Houston, Deputy Mayor Burketti supports. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, let's see. Okay, motion for the, I got it here. Yeah. I got that in stereo. November 8th, 2022, regular council meeting minutes, a recommendation, adopt the minutes. Councilor Jobin, Councilor Houston, support. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. That was minutes. I missed that. Yeah, it's okay. Mover and seconder that the regular council meeting of November 8th, 2022 be canceled. And that in accordance with section 4C of the procedure bylaw 22013, notice be given that the Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 meeting date of council is canceled and such notice will be posted on the town's website. Moved by Councilor Jobin, Councilor Councilor Houston supports, and all in favor, opposed, that is carried. Motion for to confirm the proceedings of our meeting today, moved by Counselor Petrie and supported by Counselor Houston on the, to confirm the proceeding of our meeting. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And before we adjourn, being that it is our last meeting, and it's unfortunate that Counselor Petrie, your meetings from the comfort of your home and during your recovery, but on behalf of all of us here around the Horseshoe and certainly administration, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for putting your name out to replace our outgoing Councillor Dowie, who was elected in June to the provincial legislature. And we want to thank you for your service up till now. You're no stranger to the community. You've been involved with in many ways, from a firefighter to a captain to a deputy to the chief, now counselor. You know, so that I think the years of service to our community is well over 40 years. And so on behalf of all of us, and in particular citizens of Ward 1 and the rest of the community, thank you for your for stepping forward and to fill that seat. And with that, I do have a parting a gift here on behalf of all of us. I'll make sure I deliver it to your home for you. And but with that, I want to say thank you. And now I will give you an opportunity to certainly address council, administration, and certainly our citizens.
Through you, your worship, is the volume all right where you can hear me?
Yep.
The 4 months that I was available to do this job and was so lucky to be given the job, I have nothing but a great admiration for council, for yourself, for the CAO and senior management, which I had worked with for a long time, and I had the greatest respect for that group, right down to the frontline staff. You know, when I first jumped into this job, there were some things I didn't want to do, something I wasn't supposed to. People were very helpful. They treated me with respect that I would as if I was an elected official, and it meant a lot to me. This community means a great deal to me. I was fortunate. I grew up here. There is no better place I feel to live is in Tecumseh. And when I sat on the committee for the anniversary, it stirred up a little bit of, well, I think I need to get involved with some things. So, you know, there's something coming in the future. I know there's some committee appointments they're looking for. I may submit my name for something there. To sit home and just to watch in the sidelines when there's so many great people doing good things, and you want to be part of that. And once again, my sincerest thanks to everyone involved in the town. Like I say, from you, council, Marg, and senior management and frontline staff. It was enjoyable, and I didn't regret it. And it gave me all the rewards I thought it was going to. And hopefully I made a little bit of difference in Ward 1. Thank you.
We'll have to bring you back though to do the ribbon cutting on the trail, because obviously you were part of that process. So anyway, stay tuned. And thank you for once again from all of us for your service and putting your name forward and doing a great job for us in the short period of time. And so with that, we have the confirmatory bylaws been done. So adjournment's in order, and I'm going to give Councillor Petrie the privilege to move adjournment to the meeting.
So
Moved by Councillor Petrie, supported by Councillor Jobin. Our business this afternoon actually is now concluded. So thank you, and thank you, council, admin, and certainly those who are viewing from the comforts of home. We bid you good evening, and I'm looking forward to, I'd be remiss again. I said it in the camera, but I want to thank council, my council, for the last 4 years. I mean, you guys have been champions and great leaders in our community. You represented yourselves with respect and certainly the utmost professionalism. And on my behalf, an extremely proud mayor of an excellent council that I think, and I'm going to be biased, bar none, the best in Southwestern Ontario. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for your dedication and most importantly, your love to the community. And it's reflected in everything that you've done. And unfortunately, Councillor Altenhoff had to leave, but we did give him his his thank you, and certainly Councillor Tonio is on other business right now as well. And I'd be remiss not to say thank you to administration. It's a bit of people laugh, and I always say, the only thing that I ask as the mayor of the community, but certainly as a politician, is two things: no surprises and make me look good. And you know what? You have done that tremendously in the last 4 years. And so from me to you, thank you. Thank you for, again, delivering the services with the utmost professionalism. Bar none, I think, we're not the biggest community, but we're darn well one of the best managed and run communities in Ontario. And so thank you for everything that you do. We probably don't say it enough. Thank you. But each and every one of you should pat yourselves on the back for certainly a job well done. It doesn't go unnoticed. Maybe you might feel that, that it does, but trust me, we're proud of the fact that we have a great administrative staff. Now we still, Paul Anthony, who's going to be leaving us soon, is not here, but certainly I want to extend that to Paul as well, and his group out there in rec and public works, and from the guys who are out there, the public works staff and water and our front end staff, bar none, best folks around. So thank you once again. All right, with that, then we bid you all a good night, and until we meet again, inauguration on November 15th. And we're going to continue with a lot of enthusiasm and continue to make this community one of the best places to live, work, and play. So thank you.